everyone. Thank you for joining this afternoon in our part 2 of a Helium series we started last year. And I'm very pleased to have esteemed panelists here. And before we get started, I'd like to introduce you to the WCA. So WCA is an organization that's been around for nearly 3 decades. And our charter is to educate and really pull in leaders throughout the industry, particularly in the wireless space. And with that, sometimes we talk about spectrum, sometimes we talk about new emerging technologies, and sometimes we talk about trends in the wireless industry, such as this decentralized wireless movement that we're all experiencing. So with that, before we begin, I want to thank our sponsors who have supported us through the years, as you can see here on the screen. And without them, we would not be here. And we really appreciate their generosity. We are a nonprofit, so we do appreciate donations from these companies. And we also host many events, which we will talk about towards the end, some upcoming events that might be fruitful for the wireless community. And, just a little housekeeping before we get started. So this is a open Zoom chat and LinkedIn live webinar. So please put your questions in either Zoom or LinkedIn, and we will address them as best we can. And some of the panelists can also address those questions. This is a recorded presentation, so it will be available online, either on our YouTube channel or on the WCA.org site within 48 hours. And with that, I say greetings and welcome, and thanks for being our guest today. So let's get started. So what a fun title we have for you today. So today we're going to be presenting to you the Hitchhiker's Guide to Deploying LoraWAN on the Helium Network. And you can tell where that inspiration came from. So thank you, Peter, for giving me an idea for that wonderful graphic. And today, we really have kind of an end-to-end story of our panelists on what it takes to really deploy a LoraWAN network. We've got a miner manufacturer, a radio manufacturer, we've got an antenna manufacturer, we've got a solution provider who helps you deploy remotely. And of course, we've got folks from the Nova Labs, AKA Helium, here to tell you what their network is about and what is happening now and what's happening in the future. So with that, let's get started on the panelists, and I'm going to get started with. Here we go. So let me just say, why are many of you here? And many of you are here because you either A, already own a miner, or maybe want to optimize it, or B, you want to own one yourself because you haven't really gotten one yet, or you have an IoT application that could utilize the Helium network, or maybe you're just curious of what the heck this decentralized wireless crypto thing is. So with that, I thought, well, let's tell the story. And many of you know what Helium is, and most of us, what has really driven us, all of us, as an industry and community, to be part of this Helium network. And so what I thought I put together was Helium by the numbers, right? So when we did this event last November, was it November 11th? There are 306,000 hotspots available or are live on the planet. And as of today, there are 900,000, so almost tripling in the 9-month time. And in fact, I was just Googling this, earlier today, and Helium did just do an announcement that they've hit their 900,000 milestone for the hotspots. So quite an accomplishment for the growth of the Helium network. And for those who are new to Helium, you could read the 4 bullets here, but I'll just go ahead and read them off. Helium is a decentralized wireless network built by individual radio hotspot owners, so AKA the Helium hotspots, powered by the Helium blockchain, which is, of course, making all this possible, and incentivized by the H&T crypto token. All right, so I know some of us are experiencing the crypto winter. But I think it goes beyond just the token, right? There's a bigger vision here on what Helium brings, and the fact that it's already 900,000. I do believe we were on track for this million miner march. right? So it's going to happen, whether it's going to happen in next quarter or 2 quarters from now, but that I think is inevitable. So I'm really excited, and a couple little fun stats that I looked up. Some of you may have been following Helium Inc., the company, now Nova Labs. Helium raised $200 million and I think February, March at a 1.2 billion valuation. So certainly a lot of the investor and just the tech community is seeing the value of what's being built here. And just recently, LoraWAN, which had their conference in Paris, awarded Helium the Innovation Award for 2022. So in order to kick us off, I thought, well, who better to talk and ask than a miner manufacturer himself, who has experience in not only the miner manufacture, but also building radio. So with that, I'd like to introduce Bob Cressen. Hey, Bob, how are you?
Good. Thanks, Andy. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us online today. And for those of you watching in hindsight, appreciate you joining. I'm excited about this panel. It's certainly excited to see the growth, Andy. So I appreciate those stats as well. So brief background about me. KST is actually a 19-year-old company. We're based in Colorado Springs, which is about 1 hour south of Denver. Personally speaking, I hold 2 degrees in electrical engineering. So when Andy said that I built radios, I think my very first radio I built when I was about 7 years old, a little crystal radio. And I actually got busted by the principal for doing it because I think he thought I was doing something really evil in the basement of the school. But I was a little guy. So I've been building radios a very long time. Before founding KST, I had a 12-year career at Hewlett Packard and Agilent Technologies. So while there, I did analog and mixed signal analog IC design. So been doing engineering for about 25 years, and I don't let my team do all the engineering work because I enjoy it too much.
We can tell behind you, we can tell.
Yeah, that's actually not a background, although someone challenged me on that one. So I'm not sure if I ever told you that story. And I actually went and picked up a soldering iron to prove that that was not a flag background. That is my daily driver back there. So I do still get involved. In order to bootstrap KST, which I started about 19 years ago, I did teach at the University of Colorado for about 4 or 5 years, double E courses, which I seriously enjoyed. I hope I get back there someday to do some lab work. Today at KST, I get to do a little bit of everything, but I usually get called in to do hardware, firmware, whatever's kind of the weird and wonderful problem of the day at KST. So that's a little bit about me personally, and I can share a little bit about KST as well. Andy, do you have those details on the next slide?
Yes, I do. Next slide.
Okay, perfect. So I mentioned KST's about...
I'm sorry, let me go back.
Okay.
I think I skipped there. There you
go. I can do Tal Glass's slide if they want.
I'm sure you can.
They're awesome. So just a little bit about KST. So I mentioned that we were based in Colorado Springs. About half of our revenue is in the engineering services space, where we do full consulting for folks. So we do have kind of all the people on staff necessary from an engineering standpoint to build products from the ground up. So that includes hardware engineering, embedded systems development, embedded Linux, embedded Android, iOS, Android and Windows app development, cloud engineering, UI UX engineering, mechanical, and I can't get rid of my test and measurement roots. We also do a little bit of flash and test from a production standpoint here at KST. The other half of our revenue is in products. And so you might hear the term affinity today. That is our Helium hotspot. That is like dangerously close to shipping. I have inventory piled high in one of my offices. And so we're anxious to get those to market. We're really in the final stages from a launch perspective. And so I mentioned I was HP Agilent. We're a relatively small company at KST, but we did take what we think are the best in terms of building a robust product from a product lifecycle standpoint. And so we put a lot of emphasis on the quality of our solutions. But this market moves incredibly fast, 3x miner increase in a very short amount of time. And so we have a lot of layers that we have built over the years that allow us to very rapidly prototype and build products. Yeah. And so what we love to do is hear what our customers have in terms of problems, and we love to solve those problems. So we come up with the right solution for the problem and craft it for our clients. So last thing I'll leave you with, just by way of introduction and kind of the final word on KST, what we really love to do as a team is sense things that are remotely out there, get that data to the cloud, make sense out of that data, and then get it down to the people who really need it to run their businesses and to improve their quality of life. So excited to be in the IoT and super excited to see what Helium has done in such a short amount of time from a LoraWAN coverage perspective. So that's a little bit about me and a little bit about KST, Andy.
That's awesome, Bob. I mean, you guys are a bona fide RF design house for sure, and the fact that you decided to take your RF know-how, building the radio modules, the concentrator, which is no small feat, and you now having a hotspot. Can you tell us the differences between a Helium hotspot compared to a LoraWAN gateway? What are those differences?
Yeah, there's some really important differences, Andy. So from a journey standpoint, just for context, we've been doing LoraWAN for probably about 5 years now, Helium for about 3 years. So we remember like tens and hundreds of hotspots when we first started discussing Helium. And then we've been about 1 year deep into an R&D cycle to create Affinity. And it's taken us about a year to figure out what are the critical differences between just a standard LoraWAN gateway. What makes a Helium hotspot unique? And in true Dave Letterman style, I have a top 10 list for you, but they're in no particular order. So the first major difference, and it's a important one from a distribution standpoint, is that Helium is really a public LoraWAN network. You could grab a LoraWAN gateway and you could create either a public or a private network. But when you're on Helium, it's public. Now, this is actually super cool because it means that if you build something very common, like maybe an asset tracker, you can now literally hop from place to place. And as long as there's Helium coverage, you'll be pushing that data to the cloud. So Helium is public by nature. There's no private equivalent when thinking about Helium. So that's the first major difference. Second major difference is that there are key parameters about your gateway that are very important on a Helium hotspot that are not as important maybe on a LoraWAN gateway. And those key parameters include things like antenna, gain, height, location, lat-long location. These are really required by the blockchain and they impact that reward system. So cryptocurrency and decentralized wireless really drive a lot of these big differences. And that second major difference is knowing your network and knowing what your antenna gain, height, and location really are. The third major difference that I would point out is this idea of proof of coverage. This is something that doesn't really exist in a normal LoraWAN sense. And it makes everything a bit more complex, but also helps with the overall health and integrity of the network. This actually requires that a LoraWAN gateway does what's called a proof of coverage transmission on LoraWAN subband 2. Normally, subband 2 is reserved for uplinks from IoT devices, but as a Helium hotspot, you're actually sending out a transmission there. That adds a little bit of complexity, a little bit of firmware difference, and certainly some FCC differences from a certification standpoint that have to be taken into account. And that's really the fourth difference. When you certify a LoraWAN gateway, you don't have to worry about this hybrid mode that is required when certifying a Helium hotspot. So there is a channel pseudo-random sequence hop that has to occur. And so that pushes you into hybrid mode testing, which is a bit unusual from a LoraWAN gateway perspective. There is downlinking that's part of normal LoraWAN, but POC transmissions are not. If you're familiar with Semtest SX1302 HAL, which is just public and on GitHub, there is no script, for instance, that puts the device into that mode. So that's something that as a hotspot manufacturer, you really have to take care of yourself.
Bob, I have two more questions for you. So I know you have a top 10, and maybe we can save that for an open panel.
Sure.
This is the WCA. So for those who want to kind of go deep dive, geek out a little bit, please put it in the chat. Bob will answer your questions for sure. And so with that, Bob, so you have these unique design techniques used by the hotspot, to address. So what is the differentiation kind of at a deeper level that these techniques that you're talking about?
Yeah, there's certainly things that we put in Affinity, Andy, that are very unique to account for some of these things. Stuff like proof of coverage transmissions.
Right.
Even digital wallet integration means that you have to design differently than you would with just a normal LoraWAN gateway. So as an example, transactions must be signed before submitting to the blockchain. And so you have to decide, who is that signer? Is that the Helium wallet app, or do you want to do something that's a bit more cloud-based? I think a second one, and this is a different top 10 list, so yeah, anxious to answer questions later about this, but another one is just adding gateways. And so a lot of Helium hotspots require a local BLE connection. But if you are doing enterprise-like deployments, or let's say you have 10, 100, or 5,000 hotspots, a local BLE connection for management, such as adding gateways or changing your antenna gain, can be really challenging. So you have to think very carefully about, from the ground up, how are you going to build your hotspot to account for that.
So true. So true.
Managing dovetails on that, Andy. So once you put this out there, if it's on someone else's property, for instance, you may not be able to get to it again. Yeah. And so remote management, which is something that's not part of the Helium Wallet app, but just knowing how to do, say, updates on a miner become really critical. Yeah. Helium did a rollout from a full hotspot miner to a light, for instance.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that required every hotspot manufacturer to make sure that they could do a remote update. If you look at the release schedule, roughly every 2 to 3 weeks, we see a new version of the Helium Miner come out. So as a hotspot manufacturer, it's not a luxury to do over-the-air update. It's really a requirement. Yeah. So you have to build that into your architecture.
So in closing, can you, as a hotspot manufacturer, right, you have to worry about all these things about wallet management, about even supply chain and all that. So what do you see that's next for the Helium ecosystem, and how you as a manufacturer need to rise to that challenge? Like
that's a great question. I can certainly tell you what we're excited about. I mean, so H&T, of course, is about to break up into mobile and IoT tokens. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. Helium is taking care of that from a hotspot manufacturer standpoint, but I think that puts a sharper point on what the network is capable of doing. Mm-hmm. And it leads to this idea that Helium is really a network of networks going into the future. It's not just an IoT LoraWAN network. It's also going to provide, mobile 5G coverage. It's really going to realize the true vision of decentralized wireless. And I think that's what we're the most excited about. So as a manufacturer, like when we created Affinity, we made sure that we had as much future proof as we possibly could, such that we could account for different RF front ends that are coming to the table.
So it's a beefy miner, what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're going to run a 5G stack, that's totally different than running like a LoraWAN packet forwarder.
Right,
we made sure that we had compute horsepower that was ready for that next generation. Awesome. So whether it's 5G or millimeter wave, Wi-Fi 6. I mean, we see many radio front ends coming that make this a really exciting ecosystem.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure our friends at Nova Labs will have some more details about the other mobile and IoT tokens. So thank you, Bob, for that. Really awesome that you're in the thick of it, of building the miner and seeing all the trials and tribulations and the successes of it. So wonderful.
Thanks, Andy.
Yep. So next, I'd like to introduce Frank from Taoglass. And as they say, it don't work without the antenna. So Patrick, I can tell you from a personal experience, that I use a Taoglass antenna in my miner at the office, and I get like 60 kilometers with this bad boy from San Jose all the way to San Francisco, right? According to the Helium Explorer. And so, tell us a little bit about Taoglass, about yourself, and for those who don't know the Taoglass name, which I would be surprised they don't.
Sure, absolutely. No, thanks. Myself, I've been in the, have a bachelor's of EE from Mankato, Minnesota State Mankato here in Minnesota. I've been in the IoT or the M2M industry for going on 15 years or so, where I've been worked on a lot of different projects in the various industries, really across all the industries that IoT covers, and from industrial to transportation to medical to some aerospace and all kinds of different things. So lots of different verticals. So coming to Taoglass, you get to apply that knowledge and experience and to help our broad customer base. So Taoglass was founded in 2004 to provide antennas to that M2M, the IoT space. Back then it was M2M, now it's become IoT. So we've been doing this for almost 20 years. Since then, we have over 3,000 antenna designs and customizations. We have 40,000 plus sales part numbers that you can choose from. And so we just have to provide this really broad range of products. Again, so you're showing some of the applications and the products and the types of radios that we work with and deal with every single day. just because the IoT space is just so diversified and just a huge number of verticals and applications. Continuously surprised by that. We have 11 locations globally, and where we can provide 24/7 global customer support. And that's a huge key for us, is providing quality and providing customer support. And that's, we really try to focus on having good lead times, having good support, having stock, having people that you can reach out to and have available. So we have over 20,000 customers that we service, again, in all kinds of different applications and verticals. So
you guys are headquartered where?
We are headquartered in Dublin, Ireland, or Enniscorthy, Ireland. So it's an Irish company from the get-go.
Yeah. Love to go there. I have your portfolio here.
Yeah, just to kind of give a sense for that breadth of that portfolio. We do everything from very small surface mount antennas that could go into like an asset tracker or something like that that would attach to the Helium network, or other kinds of networks, all the way up to large multi-antennas that you can have multiple types of radios attached to, that might go onto a vehicle roof, or go things that are magnetic mount, or go onto a box, or go onto a pole. It's just because of the diversity of applications we have. We try to meet as many of those as we can. I think for this conversation, a lot of what we're looking at is probably that wall and pole mount, that white antenna that we see down there is our Barracuda series. So we see is really fits a lot of the hotspot deployments that we look at for the Helium network.
And that's the one that we have mounted in our building to get that phenomenal coverage. So what are the important characteristics of antenna when deploying a Helium LoraWAN hotspot? Like, what do people need to look out for? Because there's so many options, there's so many gain options or types. What should they think about when they're choosing an antenna?
Right. Yeah. Antennas kind of have this cloud of mystery around them, right? They kind of, we talk about the black magic of antennas, and really, there's probably 30 or 40 different parameters I could think of to describe antennas in some way. But for a Helium LoraWAN hotspot in particular, I think we can boil it down to really ones that are fairly common. So gain, pattern type, and I'm going to loosely call this mechanical characteristics. So things like mechanical characteristics being like the construction and the quality, the types of connectors, right, that you would have of the antenna. So like that white antenna is a fiberglass, and it's intended to be mounted on a pole or outside, right? It's really rugged. And some of these, though, can be very long. I think we have one that's 2 meters long to be used for very high gain. So those are very critical for that type of application. Right. But if you have a hotspot where you might be inside of your house, your roommates, your family members might not appreciate a 2 meter long white antenna in your living room. So kind of matching those mechanical characteristics to the antenna, to the application.
Right.
But kind of back.
What would you recommend for someone who's living in a high rise and they put one next to their window, or someone who has a 1-story, a single family home? Do you recommend kind of this sweet spot that would cover most coverage needs?
Yeah, so this kind of gets to that gain and pattern type. So this gain number and pattern, the gain describes how squeezed, how concentrated the power is of the antenna, right? It's a passive device. We can't add anything. So this gain refers to how concentrated the power is in any particular direction. The higher the gain number, the more squeezed it is. Right. And with that white, that pole style, the Barracuda that we have, it tends to be squeezed like a pancake and kind of shoots out this way. As you kind of reduce the size of that style, or you go towards like that terminal mount that we see on the left of that, the pattern tends to broaden out. And so for somebody that's for example, an urban setting, and you want to be able to have a good solid, dense coverage where there might be a lot of hotspots near you, you might actually tend towards that lower gain. So those smaller, more compact white barracudas or the terminal mount antennas. But as you are trying to reach a broader range, so that rural case, kind of where you have a low density of hotspots, you're trying to just get a lot of coverage.
Yeah.
You really want to get the longest antenna that has a very high gain on it, and that tends to be the kind of the breakdown that I see.
Perfect. And then, what are other hotspot miner details that people should keep in mind? Because the antenna is, of course, one element of it, but there are other things like cabling and lightning arresters. And if you look on YouTube, there are a ton of folks who really just deck out their miner with all sorts of accessories. What can you speak about that?
Yeah, so no, this has been something that infrastructure engineers have been working on and sweating the details of for quite a long time, and so there's some key things. So there's coax can be important, lightning arresters can be important, and if we kind of make that same distinction, so having the miner in your living room versus having it outside onto a pole, if we kind of look at those as two stereotypical examples.
Right.
If you're trying to have a dense coverage in a denser area, you probably going to have a lower coax length. So there you can be a little bit more. You can maybe have a smaller coax, maybe not sweat the details of that so much.
Yeah.
You probably don't need the lightning arrestor.
Yeah.
But if you are putting an antenna outside, it's really important to get the antenna up high as possible. B, because it's going to be up high, then you're going to need more coax. Then you may actually want to sweat the details of that, and you may actually want to invest into lower loss, larger diameter coax for that.
Right.
And C, because you have that long coax length, you're going to be more sensitive to lightning strikes.
Right.
Just because of that and getting that potential difference with lightning. And so it's going to be more important to have a lightning arrestor that's well connected to earth ground. And those are going to be important details that might save your miner one day.
Yeah. It wouldn't be a happy owner if you had a miner that get power surged and isn't minting any HNT, right? So
exactly.
Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate that. Thanks for that overview. Next, I want to introduce Brian Gill. And Brian Gill works at Embedded Works, and he is all about connectivity. So Brian, can you introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the connectivity and router specialist at Embedded Works. Been working with Andy on solutions for several years, IoT solutions, asset tracking and other IoT solutions, but mainly in the realm of projects that involve connectivity, cellular connectivity, and now some of the LoraWAN and the miner connectivity. In the background here, you can see kind of some of the divisions that we do. Our main division is Embedded Works Solutions, which includes the cellular connectivity that I'm showing there. TFL is a tracking division that we have that specializes in tracking applications for vehicles and even for lone worker and not just vehicles and the lone worker and other assets. And then SensorWorks, which kind of ties into the entire realm of sensors in the field for ag functionality, using LoRa, and then having sometimes cellular backhaul, depending on the actual application. But SensorWorks is an important division that's growing for us. So that's it's kind of us in a nutshell.
Great. Get you the next slide here. So you've built something that's getting a lot of buzz in the community. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so I just wanted to show everyone a recent project that I had done that integrates solar capability into either LoRa LoraWAN or mining. You can do, either one, obviously. But as far as, who wants this kind of setup, people that are doing HNT mining that need to be out, away from an urban environment, on a hilltop or whatnot to help maximize some of the HNT, mining returns and whatnot. And then sometimes people that just need a gateway for LoRa, for the actual LoRa network, that maybe you're not interested in doing mining necessarily, but something like, I say, like ag, where you might need this gateway that has a cellular backhaul to talk to all the LoRa sensors within a particular area. I mean, LoRa has really great range and cellular has pretty decent range, but this product kind of brings it all together. You have the power remote unit to provide coverage where coverage wouldn't exist otherwise, for some of these sensor networks.
So do you find that the folks that are coming to you, do they always need both? They always need a backhaul and power, or they just need one and not the other? Is it most of the time, both or one?
Yeah, this just gives better flexibility. This product here, this project, where you don't have to tie into a LAN. There's no local LAN or Wi-Fi or whatever kind of connectivity you get from from any given location. Stuff like even fire monitoring out here in the West, where you're not going to have the ability to connect into the network anywhere. So you need cellular. You need cellular on the backhaul, and then LoRa is turning out to be a better and better solution for a lot of these sensor networks, as we're seeing.
Yeah, and I've talked to you. You mentioned that the current miners today, they're the full miners, so they're not the light miners yet, and they were pushing a lot of data, but you feel like the light miner is going to be, I guess, more affordable from a hardware and a data perspective?
Yeah, I think that remains to be seen, and there'll probably be some people that are talk more to that than I can. But I have yet to see some of the benchmarking for the light miners as far as the data. But I can tell you, in the testing that I've done with with the full miner capability, not the light miner, over the past 8 months or so, these miners can use a lot of data. They can use up to a gig of data per day. So we're seeing usage of 30 gig a month, which seems unbelievable. But with the syncing to the blockchain constantly, just a ton of data. And if you were hooked to a LAN cable, you probably wouldn't really even care too much about it. But for a data plan that might cost $20, $30, $40 a month, whatever, it can really cut into your mining mining returns pretty quickly, right?
Yeah. Hopefully the light miner will kind of alleviate that, and maybe the folks from Nova Labs can shed some light on that. And so you've done some testing out in the field. So what results are you seeing, with this kind of off-grid box?
Yeah, that's a good question. Tying into what I was saying as far as where you want to use this type of solution, the pictures down at the bottom are off of the Helium Explorer app, and the one on the left is the Bay Area, South Bay, where you can see the transmit scale. That's what the color coding is. And some people are probably very familiar with it. Some people probably have never seen it before, perhaps. But the green are areas with high transmit scale that you want to target, right? You want to talk to those gateways out there. So if you're within the ocean of red, you're going to have a hard time, because the transmit scale is very low. Sometimes 0.1 instead of 1 being the ultimate what you're looking for. Sometimes you're at 0.1, 0.2, and so you're not going to get much, in these red areas. So what I've done and experimented with is, instead of using like an Omni that I show in the picture, is I've been using a directional Yagi antenna, about a 13 dB gain Yagi, and just pointing the unit at some of these green areas, if you're not close to them. And on the right here, you can see this is from my house, showing pretty decent range, headed to the northeast. If I point, the antenna is basically pointed northeast, and I'm able to hit some of these green cells, that have a better transmit scale. So that's just, something to think about if everybody's used to using Omni in situations where you're inside of one of these green areas. Omni might work great, but if you're in one of the red areas, low transit scale, Yagi might be something worth thinking about for sure.
So you're putting that RF energy, away from the red, as it seems here, and hopefully reach other hotspots.
There's a lot of experimentation that goes on with something like this, and since it's mobile, I could put it out, out in the middle of the field in some of these green areas, but most of the testing that I've been doing is just within at my house, essentially, doing experiments.
Right.
And sometimes at Yagi, really, you can see the returns, over the course of several weeks. And like I said, I've experimented for about a year now, and I think with the HNT being as low as it's been, you really want to maximize your returns as much as you can. And sometimes that antenna makes a big difference.
Yeah. Cool. Well, if any of you guys are thinking about deploying, please, put some antenna questions for Patrick or Brian and Bob if you're thinking about the miner. So with that, I'd like to move on to our final set of panelists, and I'd like to introduce Victor Lee and Richvik Patel from Nova Labs, aka Helium. So we not only brought you one, but we brought you two sales engineers on the call. So welcome to the call, Victor and Richvik. I think, Victor, you're on mute. I think people are dying to know what is Nova Labs and how is it different from Helium? Because there's some confusion out there. Can you clear it up for us?
Yeah, totally. So so originally we are called Helium Inc., and we decided to rebrand ourselves into Nova Labs because we want to make it clear that we are building on top of the Helium network, which is an open source project. We don't own the network. It is actually owned and operated by the people. And we want to make sure that there's a clear distinction between our corporate entity and the network.
I see. Okay. So you separated kind of the blockchain, your responsibility, and then the innovation part of it. And that's hence the Nova Labs. I don't know if I got that right.
Essentially, the entire network will continue to be named under Helium Network. It's just that any ways that we are building on top of it, that will fall under the branch of Nova Labs. It will continue to be an open source project that anybody can operate under.
Got it. And Richvik, so what trends are you seeing in usage here? Because you guys probably see what's under the hood, what people are doing with this network and use cases. Because at the end of the day, we build this wonderful network that people are really just clamoring to be part of. But what is it good for? What are people using it for?
Yeah, so we see a lot of amazing use cases here and there every day, and some of them are like really unique. Like people are deploying hotspots on ships and whatnot. And but the trend that we are seeing is majority of them are smart agriculture, where we have likes of M3 and also Agulus. And the other trend we are seeing is mainly asset tracking, where Embedded Works is a major player, and we have Abbyway also there.
Mm-hmm. So those applications, the one with the ships kind of intrigues me. How is it that it's used on ships? Can you explain that a little bit?
So ships have the satellite internet. So it's just like a cellular backhaul. It has a satellite internet backhaul, and it's mainly used to do the asset tracking, wherein the asset is the goods which is being transferred from one continent to another continent.
Oh, cool. Right, like a shipping yards and these type of things. Got it. Interesting. And so maybe to Victor, so what are you doing to scale the network? Because you got this huge milestone here. You guys have it at 890K when you got this kind of slide, but now we just hit 900K. Like where is this all going?
Yeah, totally. Actually, Richvik, you want to chime in on this because Richvik is our scalability expert.
Oh, okay, perfect. to you, Richvik. Yeah, tell us about the scale.
Yeah. So what we are doing to scale is no more a secret. Everyone is knowing it. There's a lot of buzz around it. The light hotspot upgrade is one of the major reasons we brought in it, because it is to scale the network. as the network is growing, as you can see, there are more than now 900 hotspots there. What we were observing is like the amount of the whole net, like the blockchain, the complex calculation stuff can really take a toll on your miner, which is mostly runs on a Raspberry Pi. So it's a lot for it to calculate and like handle all those compute. So what we did is we took the whole complex calculation stuff off of the miner and gave it to the validators. So in this way, the miner does not have to perform the complex compute. And because we were seeing that miners get heated up, or due to the continuous reading and writing of the SD card gets corrupted. So we took all that off. And now it's a light miner, which basically acts just as a LoRa packet forward, and it works pretty smooth.
It's not lighter in weight, but it's lighter in,
exactly.
in software and data transmission. And so, you know, when you have these light miner, is there a way that people will know they have a light miner? Because I've read online that it's coming, and you know there's not an indication that I can see that people know when their light miner is enabled. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So for the miner part of things, like you can look at the block height which your miner has reached. So if it has attained the block height of 1,350,664 or something, it means that it has made the transition to the light miner.
I see. Yeah. So you have to look at the blockchain. Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Is there? I have on the screen here in terms of the value, the dollars and cents of the Helium network. Explain to folks, like, what is the value add of this network? Being that the towers themselves are people's homes and businesses, and you're saying you're $1 per year, you know, per device for every 5-minute pings. I mean, that's hell of a value. So yeah, how is that possible?
So what we have introduced are the data credits. So you have HNTs, and then you can burn HNT to produce data credits. So you need data credits to transfer data on the network. So how we came up with this number is like the data credit is valued at 0.4001, which is basically $1 can buy you 100,000 data credits. And each data credit can help you transfer 24 bytes of data. So if you have a, say, embedded works tracker, you know, which is doing asset tracking, or you have some other sensor which is doing smart agriculture, basically sending uplinks every 5 minutes of the temperature and humidity of the soil. So for $1 per year, you'll be able to buy enough data credits, which will be sufficient to keep that sensor transmitting every 5 minutes. So,
got it. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And you know, to Victor, so you know, with everyone's talking about the light miners and so forth, but there's also talk about, you know, these new emerging technologies that are coming out as well. Does any one of you want to address what other type of, you know, technologies that Helium is up to?
Yeah, so I think, you know, our team is pretty much always all hands on deck on focusing on how do we, you know, build, improve, and scale the network to make it more robust, right? And that has always been our North Star metric. And one of the trends we're seeing is that we are always thinking and constantly thinking about the trade-off between, you know, efficiency and decentralization. And there's a lot of internal engineering discussion on how can we make the network a whole lot more efficient without sacrificing the decentralization and security. So that has been our, you know, top priority recently.
And are you now seeing that that more and more devices, more IoT devices are kind of accepting kind of LoraWAN as an alternative IoT solution? Because you have your traditional, you know, wireless mediums. You've got the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi. And what are the advantages of using the LoraWAN in IoT solutions?
Yeah, for sure. I think, you know, the main you know, attractiveness of having a LoraWAN capability is that, first of all, it's long range, and you don't need to have a SIM card for all of your devices, and which makes it cheap. And also it's very energy efficient. I think those are the top 3 selling points for having LoraWAN capability on your device. And that being said, there's also the fact that, hey, there's a huge network that's growing every day now that wasn't there before, right? So now you have even more incentive to make sure that your device is LoraWAN compatible because there's actually a network here for you to use.
Right. Because before Helium, there were kind of pocketed networks, and so maybe now, if you look at the Explorer map, it's pretty far-reaching. I mean, you can say it's a global network at this point, right? Okay.
Precisely.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and then I see here that from the next slide, this is kind of a curve, right? That you're saying launching Hotspots in 2019, exponential growth. We talked about that. Do you have a prediction? And we don't have to put a gentleman's bet on this, but when are you feeling the million miner march will hit in your estimation? And today is the 21st of July. What do you predict?
Right. Well, we want it to happen yesterday. Okay. And it's pretty funny. Like the last slide we're seeing is that the slide still had 890K on it, and now today we passed the 900K mark, right? So I think it could happen any minute. But the important thing that we need to keep in mind is that we don't have the sway to make it happen. The only folks that can make this happen is the community, and we are doing everything we can to make sure the network is valuable enough for people to, for more and more people to get onboarded onto the network, to expand coverage and to increase more usage that makes the whole tokenomics work. So it's in the hands of the people, not us.
Yeah. No, I love the tagline, powered by the people. That's really cool. And it's true. It is a people-powered network. So definitely, tip my hat to Helium, the business model and the technology for that. And then I think you guys have some announcements and kind of roadmap things that you might want to share with us. Can you give us some background around this? Maybe Richvik?
Yeah, totally.
Or Victor? Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, super exciting, stuff to come. And, as we talk about, our eventual vision for Helium is to become a network of networks. And now that we're officially in the cellular summer, that signifies our official launch of the Helium 5G network. And, if you want to know more about Helium and interacting with the team or the ecosystem in person, just keep on the outlook for the Helium NYC house. It should come around sometime in September. Mid-September.
For those who don't know, that this Helium house, what is it again?
Yeah, so we had our first Helium house, I believe, in Austin. I think what was it? It was in April. I can't remember. It's part of the Consensus conference, right? And it's pretty much a space where people can gather and talk about, hey, where do you think this network is going to go? And if there's an opportunity that we can collab, a place for people to kind of brainstorm and find new opportunities.
I hear you guys throw a pretty good party too, so it might be a good place to show up.
I'll be sure to be there next time.
Yeah, right. So the next Helium House event is going to be in New York City, correct? And
yes.
Have you guys set a date on that yet for people listening?
I think
it's 20th September.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, and this is they could find out this information from the website or on the blog. Or...
Yeah, so we are still in the process of kind of finalizing the venue, but it's in New York, that's we know for sure, and it's around 20 or 21 September around the Messari mainnet event.
Yeah, very cool. And then of course the million hotspot. I was thinking when I looked at this slide, I'm like, you ever seen those promos where it's like, this is the millionth buyer. Like you guys should have a really good reward or award for the millionth miner turned on. Like you should knock on his door and like, give him a certificate or something. I mean, that'd be cool.
That's actually a really fun idea.
Yeah. Hey, you heard it here.
Yep.
But no, I believe it's going to happen, and so I thank you guys for kind of that insight. So we're gonna move on to kind of this open panel discussion where I like to invite our speakers on board again and just kind of talk about the here and now and the future of Helium. So I guess what's probably on the back of people's minds, and this might be a little bit business and tech, but they're saying, well, right now we're in this crypto winter, right? And folks who are mining, they're gonna want to see an ROI on it. So for those folks who are motivated to build the network in that sense, that, you know, they may have some second thoughts about that. And then there are folks who said, you know what, I just want to be part of this network. It's an investment, et cetera. Just open the floor here. What do you guys think about the fact that the ROI on mining isn't what it used to be, but the technology and the vision is still there? Just open it up.
I mean, just kind of from an antenna perspective, of course, I want to touch on a point that that Brian was getting at in the kind of towards the end of his section, where he was talking about using a directional antenna, Yagi, right, to kind of fill in some area, kind of getting away from some others. And I think that that's probably getting into that phase, right, where you've kind of think of analogous with the cellular networks, where, you know, there was initial rollout and then there was working on densifying and kind of improving coverage. And it's likely getting into that. And I suspect that, as Brian saw, that if you're looking to kind of maximize your ROI, you know, kind of thinking a little bit and looking at that Explorer map and thinking, you know, where can I fill in some of that and where can I maximize some of that coverage to help to flesh out that network. I think that helps to both add value to the miners and to the network, right? It's
well put. I mean, so antenna matters even more now. So it's, you know, so you got this great miner, but if you got the wrong antenna, you're not going to do well.
Exactly,
so,
exactly. And think about how you're going to apply it and how that's going to benefit the network, right?
Right. Yeah. Then, you know, there's certainly, you know, a lot of folks have been asking about, you know, what's next for, you know, the helium. And, you know, so maybe the next question I have is, does it make sense for someone to have a coexistence of a LoraWAN miner and a 5G CBRS miner in the same location? You know, does that make sense? And if so, of course, you've got all the antennas and things that you know, apply. Are people doing that today? I mean, to the Nova Labs guys, are you hearing some folks are putting both on one site?
We are intensively dogfooding our own product right now, and there's a lot of people, not only just in community and also in our team, who's trying to, you know, set up both the LoraWAN hotspot and the 5G base station. And so far, you know, we are testing things out, and I think this is going to be an ongoing progress that we'll share any news that we have in the channel. But of course, like all of the crazy, you know, crazy complex radio physics, I think I'll defer that to our antenna expert, Patrick.
Right. Yeah. Actually, there's a question from the chat that kind of related. Someone asked, can you talk about the backhaul for 5G gateways? How will miners/owners address this? Do you see a different scenario for carriers than individual owners? That's kind of three questions there, but yeah. Anyone want to take that one? Talk about the backhaul for 5G gateways.
Yeah, so the backhaul for 5G gateways, I think the only difference that we recommend right now is that, you know, usually if you're just setting up a LoraWAN hotspot, you know, you can do that over the Wi-Fi. But for 5G stuff, I think one of our sellers, FreedomFi, they recommend just using an Ethernet instead of Wi-Fi going in there, just for the reliability, of course. And I think, you know, I haven't set up my hotspot yet. Unfortunately, the UPS lost my package, so I'm intensively waiting for that to come next. And
Bob, go hook them up.
Right. In terms of a different scenario for carriers and individual owners, I think, you know, it's always, you know, we're not here to, you know, fight with the telecom industry. We came in peace, right? We are always in a mood for cooperate and make sure that there's partnership going on all the time. And if you look at our fundings, like we actually get funded by some of the top telecoms in Europe, right? So I think everybody is in the mood to collaborate, because we do see that there's a lot of values, a lot of areas that we overlap, and we can create a complementary value proposition for each other.
Right. No, well said. And that's, you know, something that I have talked to folks in the industry is like, is Helium a carrier? You know, are they trying to be a carrier and driven by the blockchain and crypto, where traditional carriers are driven by activations and SIM cards, right? So, what do you guys feel? Is helium a carrier by the traditional definition, or have they just have a new, just define what a carrier means?
That is a great question, right? And I think that's obviously one of the many directions that we can take as we move towards 5G. Right. In terms of like which direction do we take first, that's dependent on, that's probably going to be they're going to be decided by the community and decided by the technical viability of all this, right? Because 5G is going to take a very long time to build. Just ask AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, right? How long did it take to build a functional, highly efficient mobile network? So I think there's a lot of time for us to figure things out. And I hate to rush to conclusions and say an answer that we don't commit ourselves yet.
Yeah, that sounds like a great answer, a very good corporate answer, but yes, it's a great answer. But we're kind of rounding towards the top of the hour here. I want to go just down the line with each of you guys. What do you see the future of this network and how it pertains to your space? So we'll start with Bob. Like, where do you see the future of this network?
Great question. I think Victor said, and he used the term, the network of networks. From our perspective, it's that future. We are in Black Forest, Colorado, and AT&T is terrible at our location. And we have a Freedom Fi router with CBRS small cell 50 feet away, and I'm pulling 80 meg down on my phone that normally gets 5. So we've caught the bug for decentralized. And so today it's LoraWAN, tomorrow it's 5G, the day after that, maybe it's millimeter wave, maybe it's Wi-Fi 6. And so I think I'm most excited about seeing that network of networks flesh itself out, Andy.
Very cool. Yeah, I don't think decentralized is going away. So it maybe we're at the kind of that ramp up, we're the .com curve, if you will. So totally agree with you on that one. Patrick, what do you think about the future of this network and the future of antennas? Because you said some really interesting things, like, as things get more concentrated, things will have to get more refined. That includes all the antennas and things. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I see it, it getting denser and it fleshing out, right? Just we've seen it already organically happen. And I expect that, the density and the coverage to just continue to expand, both on a supply and demand based kind of way. But I see it, I look at it from the equipment side too, the things that are attaching to the network. In the day-to-day, I work quite a bit with devices that would attach to traditional cellular networks. And there's a lot of barriers to entry to that. And there's a fair amount of cost associated with going to something like that, where with the LoraWAN, especially where the really barrier has really been the coverage and just the lack of a consistent global network that's available. So having a large, consistent, dependable network will, I think, enable a lot of devices to be able to join that might not have made sense for a cellular to be attached to that kind of WAN network. So I see it kind of working in both ways, both growing and enabling, and hopefully pushing both supply and demand on these kind of things.
Yeah. Thank you. Actually, there's a question just came in to any panelists. Can you guys talk about what it means to be a network of networks? I guess someone needs a little bit more clarification on that. Bob, you mentioned, or Patrick, network of networks. Can you kind of define that in different terms? Good.
All yours, Bob.
Bob, you want to take that one?
Softball. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's a great question. So when I think of a network, I think of like a LoraWAN network servicing IoT devices. And Patrick's just alluded to the fact that this network is growing like crazy. And so as an engineer, I get really excited about the things that I can connect to that network. That's one network model. But another network model is something like a 5G phone, like my iPhone, literally my iPhone in my pocket, connected to a small cell, providing me data. Those are two very different devices using two very different protocols, yet they're coexisting in the same office. I've got things behind me connected to LoraWAN, and I've got a thing in my pocket connected to 5G. And so in my mind, a network of networks is maybe Helium at the top, but this LoraWAN portion, this 5G portion, this future portion that services yet another need. So it's literally a network of different radios, different physical layers. That's how I think of it in terms of network of networks. The Nova guys might have something to add to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hope that answered your question there, Stefan. Yeah. So Brian, to the question earlier, where do you see this is all going? What's your crystal ball tell you about this network of networks that's happening here?
Yeah, I think just to keep that rolling in that same vein, there's never going to be a single network technology that addresses all the needs, of every application out there. I have enough customers across different application, verticals where, from ag to earthquake monitoring, that don't need high speed at all, and to the other end of the spectrum. It's just such a big spectrum of networking when you talk about, different speeds and different distances. LoRa does a pretty amazing job at what it does, but you'd never mistake it for a network where you could have voice carried over or whatnot. So the network of networks is probably the best way to talk about that kind of brand, the different sub networks of LoRa type technology that kind of roll up into a backhaul of a cellular technology, because you need both, right? And I think the idea that Helium came up with rewarding people for expanding the network is a great idea. I think it's, as you said before, Andy, we're in kind of a winter of that whole thing with all the all the Bitcoin, all the coins going down and being whacked lately. But I think it has a bright future because people get rewarded for putting those nodes out there, and it's just going to make the network more widely available and stronger. I don't think the traditional carriers are really interested in the coverage that Helium is eventually going to obtain. I don't think they're really interested in spending all that money. And also, I don't think that the consumers or businesses are going to be interested in spending what it takes per month to be on the cellular network. The monthly costs are still pretty prohibitive for a lot of applications.
Yeah, very cool. How about Richvik? What is your crystal ball for the future of this network and for IoT in general? What do you think?
Yeah, so what I think for the future of network is, as Bob put it very rightly, that you have a couple of devices in the back which are connecting to the LoRa, and then you have your phone which is connecting to the 5G gateway. And as Victor said, that one of the possibilities could be like us being a carrier, but one of the major other possibility which I see is that just like people are adopting the network as of now, that you are taking your hotspot and you're putting it in middle of a farm, and then you're running your whole smart agriculture application on it. What I see is people doing the same with 5G. They take up a 5G hotspot and put it up in their warehouse, and all the robotics, all the automated robots are connected to that 5G gateway, and the whole warehouse is operated based on that.
Right. So you see that the 5G network could and would be used for kind of a B2B application, right? Because you're having talking about factories, and factories will say, well, I trust and depend on this public network. So very cool. Yeah, no, that definitely, I see that future as well. Victor, how about you? What do you see in terms of the future of the Helium network? Network of networks.
Totally, yeah. So I think we are largely in consensus about where we are all going, which is great. I think we are on the same page with the community. But what I see is a huge pie, right? And whichever your favorite pie is, mine is apple pie, by the way. And with more and more sub-network protocol being introduced to the Helium network, the pie is going to get larger. And my wish for the network in the future is that there's always going to be food on the table. Whatever role do you play in the ecosystem, whether you're an antenna manufacturer, whether you're a hotspot manufacturer, whether you're a solution provider, you always have something. There's always going to be value for you if you stay in the Helium networks. That is my wish for the Helium network in the future.
Yeah, that was very deep. I subscribe to that. Yes, I think the Helium network has just so many opportunities different aspects, different businesses. And as it's proof positive here, we are all making a living as part of the Helium network ecosystem. So it's very cool. And we thank Helium for that model that's out there. So I think we got one last question here I'll take from the audience. Someone mentioned, in your current ag deployments, please comment on the number of sensor points required per acre to provide actionable data. So I assume this person is asking, in ag, how many sensors or devices can you put per acre if you are deploying Helium LoraWAN, I would assume. Anyone want to take that, Bob? You do sensors? Maybe that one.
That's a tough question. That's almost an "it depends" question.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So Andy, what did you say the distance was on your antenna rig? 60 kilometers?
I got 60 kilometers using a tile glass Omni, but granted, I'm in a 3-story building, right? So I had the height advantage, but it was over water, if you look at the Explorer. So I was, really happy that I could get that distance, but that's what I got.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would say there would be no general rule of thumb from a sensor distribution standpoint in terms of how many acres, given X amount of acres, you need Y amount of sensors. I would say line of sight is always better. Putting the antenna higher up is always better. Higher gain antenna, always better. Directional, if you know where you're going, always better. I would say from a gateway standpoint though, for a single LoraWAN concentrator, as soon as you exceed about 1,000 devices with maybe a 5 to 10 minute uplink interval, you start running into some density problems. So you can handle a lot of devices because these LoraWAN devices have a very low duty cycle. They're turning on once, they're transmitting 20 bytes, they're going to sleep for another 15 minutes or maybe an hour or two. So we found that on the order of magnitude of 1 to 3,000 devices servicing a single gateway is starting to stress out the gateway, is what we've seen from a deployment standpoint. But I think your mileage really varies in terms of your antenna, your location, how hilly your terrain is, how many people you have, how much steel you have, what are all the RF sources of interference. I think that has a huge dependency in terms of distribution. So I don't know if Patrick may want to jump in and add a few comments to that though.
Yeah, it's definitely it depends answer.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And no, all those things depend, and it comes to generating actionable data. I suspect that really comes down to the application and what exactly you're looking at. And then in terms of this coverage, no, Bob, you're on point with all those things. Getting it up high, especially in the rural areas, having the high gain, multiple directional antennas or omnis, and just kind of paying attention to that density that you have.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, 1,000 plus devices is still hell a lot of sensor devices, if you ask me. So, it's not too shabby. So with that, if there are no other questions here, I'd like to conclude our presentation today. So first of all, thank you, the panelists, for your wisdom today. I really appreciate it. I think, if you want to reach out to the panelists, we will have their contacts on the WCA.org site. I'm sure they will be happy to kind of do a deeper dive than the 1-hour session we have here. And that just a reminder, WCA, we are a nonprofit. And if you've enjoyed today's content, please consider donating if you have matching programs at your company. We really appreciate that. And with that, I will end with our awesome poster here. I think I'm going to print this out. But for those who want to know more about emerging technologies and coming, we will have our next event called the Wi-Fi Here and Now 2022, which we're going to talk about Halo, Wi-Fi 6E, Wi-Fi 7. So please go to our website and register for that. It will happen on August 25th. And we're looking forward to talking about the super high-speed technology that is Wi-Fi. So, all right, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, panelists, and go out there and start helping to build this network.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.